Hello and welcome back to the True North CFL podcast. This episode is going to be a little different today. It is just a draft special to kind of keep the content going. There is been a mock draft posted, so we figured we should get in on this. So we are joined with our draft expert here, James Tees. James, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm James Tees. You can follow me on Instagram, JAMES_TEES.
All right, and James is an offensive lineman in U Sport, and obviously follows the CIS very well. So he's probably actually played against some of these guys we might talk about even.
Quite a few, actually.
Oh, all right, that's good. I actually want to hear about that then. So we posted a mock draft on our Instagram and our Twitter. If you haven't seen it, just go to search True North CFL podcast. You'll find us on both of those platforms, and we did round one and round two. So we're kind of gonna go through the different players we have and talk about them, and we'll say what order they're in for each of us because James and I have different orders, but in some spots we have similar players. So we'll kick this off right now with round one. I had Carter O'Donnell, Thomas Jack, Verdela of University of Buffalo, Cattell SA of Laval. James had it as number one, Carter O'Donnell, uh, Cattell SA, and Thomas Jack. I always screw up this guy's name. Thomas. How do you want it? How do you say it, James?
Uh, Cardilla, I'm not sure. That's when I mess up as well. Sorry, guys, if we mess up on pronunciation. Some of these names are tough.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's the order we have them in. Just we swapped SA and Thomas Jack. I have him going to the Argos. James has Jack going the Lions, and say I have going the Lions. James has going the Argos. So, James, feel free to give your analysis on these three guys in whatever order you feel is right.
I think Carter O'Donnell's the unanimous number one pick because Neville Gallimore and Chase Claypool are going in the first and second round of the NFL draft, probably. But O'Donnell is by far the best lineman in this draft. Multiple all-time Canadian and CanWest All-Star. He's 6'6", so he's able to play guard or tackle. He has that body. He's nasty. He's a mauler. I've been gassing him up for the longest time before mock drafts were out, and I think he is the undisputed number one pick just based on how good he is. But the only issue I see is he might get picked up by an NFL team, might bounce around practice squads, but I think at the end of it, he'll be a CFL player.
I kind of agree with you on that one. I've definitely heard the NFL interest is around him for sure, but I feel like even if that's true, I think Calgary has enough depth at that position that they could afford probably to wait on him. He's there for maybe a year or two.
Oh yeah, 100% they could. They can get by for a little bit. It's just a lot of CFL guys, it's tough for them to come in and start right away, but I think O'Donnell can because a lot of University of Alberta O linemen tend to do that and have been very successful at the next level.
Yeah, there's been a couple in recent years who have come in from the Golden Bears and actually done fairly well. It's in
Yeah,
memory.
Mark Corte and Justin Lawrence on the Stamps. Corte is the starting left tackle on the Red Blacks.
Oh yeah, Corte. Yeah, that's the name I was thinking of. And then let's move on to Thomas Jack. What do you think of him?
No shot he's going to the NFL. No shot. I just there's the difference is there's one of these there's intrigue around a guy like O'Donnell, like, oh, he should have been a guy probably playing in the States now that we think about it. But Thomas Jack, he's good. He's going to be a great CFL player, no doubt. But he's a guard, 100%. He doesn't have the frame for tackle. But I just see Assay in my draft and Carter going ahead because these are two guys that have that build and are successful in the Canadian game and will most likely be successful at the next level. But no doubt he's really good. But I just think O'Donnell and Assay are better than him.
Yeah, that's fair. I look at his track record. He's a 3-year starter at a Division 1 school. Definitely is a guard in this league, that's for sure. I don't want to fall into that trap that kind of the Riders did with Josiah St. John, where they drafted him high because he had potential playing guard or tackle, and I feel like, yeah, guard against that. This guy's a productive player. The Argos need some help right now, so I feel like he'd be a good fit for them.
But the difference between Josiah and him, Josiah, he didn't even play that much in the NCAA. This guy was a real starter. I think a lot of teams just they have that NCAA allure. So, oh, let's draft this guy. But to be honest, offensive line play is getting so they're almost on the same level where a lot of Canadian guys that play new sports beat him out just because the play is slowly getting even.
I hear you there. It's one of those things that, darn, it sucks that the one-on-ones are probably going to be canceled because of the coronavirus. Because I would have loved to have watched it and seen how these guys did, and we were going to have an episode on that. So, darn.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately not get to see any of these guys. But moving on to Assay, on my draft I have him number two. Uh, I think he's not as good as Carter, but he's still amazing. He's an all Canadian as well. Same build as Carter. He's a little heavier, but he's not as technically sound or not as much of a finisher. He's a finisher, but Carter's just nasty.
all right. I feel you there. Carter O'Donnell and I say they could play either guard or tackle, right? Or are they seen as just
Oh,
tackles?
correct. In the Canadian game, there's Canadian tackles are hard to come by. That's why if there's a guy who has this ability to play tackle, they'll get drafted high.
Yep.
But these guys both have the ability to play tackle. They play tackle in college right now, but they like to put Americans out there in the CFL. So let's see how they fare. But they both have the size.
100%, and that's why I kind of feel like Say will go to the Lions because I know they tried to go with a Canadian tackle last year with Brett Boyko, and it didn't exactly pan out. So I feel like if they got a say there, they could kind of keep experimenting with that if they wanted to, and he could, if it fails, he can just move into guard, and it's not a problem.
Yeah,
Whereas,
100%.
yeah, Thomas Jack is a pure guard. That's just why I have them reversed there.
You could say center, but it's tough to put a career guard at center.
Oh yeah, like, you hear a guy like Brendan Labatt, like, he'll play center for the Riders, but he does not like it, and he makes that kinda clear in his interviews, so,
Yeah, 100%. He's one of those guys. Yeah.
no doubt. So, moving away from our top 3, we start to differ here. At number 4, going to Edmonton, I have Mason Bennett, and James has Cameron Lawson. So, how about you talk about those 2, James?
So Cameron Lawson, I've had the pleasure of playing against.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, at Queen's University. Uh, Game wrecker, an absolute game wrecker. He does may not have these stats. He was second team All Canadian this year, but he's just one of these guys who just keeps O linemen on their feet because he's so strong and he's like about 6'3", 290, 300, about there, maybe a little less. But he's just one of these dudes where he's hard to move and get off to get any drive on him. That's why and he may not have stats, but it's just like the intangibles of his ability, his ceiling is so high, and I just see so much out of this guy. I was talking about him before he was in the top list for the scouting bureau
you
because
were. Yeah, I remember that.
guys know who he is. Not maybe not scouts, but guys in the OUA and U Sports know who this guy is. He's disgusting. But then moving on to Mason Bennett, I think he's going to be the next great pass rusher in Canadian football for being Canadian born, rather, because he played in the States in FCS and he tore it up. He was a 3-year starter. And it's really hard to come by defensive ends that are big bodied like him. Uh, so I think he'll be an impact player 100%. I don't think he's going to get NFL attention, but I think he's going to be one of these guys who makes an impact immediately in the league.
Yeah, for sure, especially with Edmonton, they lost, Nick Usher to the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland Raiders again. But, yeah, with him being gone, and now they have Boateng and Betts. I feel like if they add him, they could go with two Canadian defensive ends, which would be very interesting to see.
Oh yeah, because Betts can also play linebacker.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's good to know.
That's what he signed with the Bears to be before he got cut.
Oh, okay.
Because Bennett's quite a bit bigger than that. Well, not quite a bit bigger, but like let's say 20 pounds and like 2 inches taller, an inch or two taller.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I can see them going with that and just drafting some depth there just in case they want to. So again, we have a difference here at number 5. You have Mason Bennett, who we just talked about, and I have Michael Hoyt. Uh, so can you tell us a little bit about him, James?
Hoyt, 3 year starter at Brown University, Ivy League, FCS, defensive tackle. Honestly, I kind of this guy came out of nowhere for me, where when making our mock draft, like I honestly am gonna be, I had no idea who this guy was, but then when I put the tape on, I think he'll be really good at the Canadian level. I think Cameron Lawson's better than him. I think Cameron Lawson's the best defensive tackle in this draft. But Hoyt, no NFL attention. He played at Brown. He's one of these guys who doesn't need football. He's so smart, but he wants to pursue it, so he's coming to the CFL. And he was pretty productive at Brown, 16.5 career sacks in 3 years, which is really good for an interior guy. And also, if I'm not mistaken, at his online pro day, he ran a pretty fast 40 under 5 seconds, which is very impressive. So I definitely see him going in the first round.
For sure. I can't remember exactly what his 40 time is, but his 40 time was crazy. I'm gonna Google it as we're talking here. I look at that, his stats from last year, 4 sacks for an interior guy. That's really good. Um, just his production's good. It's at an American school that is like not a decent football school, but decent competition. It's yeah. I don't know. I like it. I think he could be a really good defensive tackle in this league. Hamilton needs depth behind Ted Laurent, so I feel like this is a natural pick for them. What's his 40 time? Hold on. I pulled it up in an article. Here it is. He ran a 4.6540,
That's
295 pounds.
yeah, that's really good. That's like NFL good, but I just don't think he gets an NFL look just based on where he played and the amount of D tackles in this draft.
True. In a couple picks, we'll talk about NFL speed, but on to our number 6 pick, we have the same guy. We have Jordan Williams, who's a linebacker. Now, this guy's a little bit interesting, so why don't you tell us a bit about him, James?
So I went to the Ontario Combine to see some of my teammates do some drills and compete, and this guy wowed everyone. I had no idea who he was. No scouts had any idea who he was. He played at Eastern Carolina, was a starting linebacker for him. If I'm not mistaken, this past season, I don't want to say the team because I don't want to get wrong, but I know he was on an NFL practice squad. And he's in
Oh,
the same boat as Singleton. Not is he's going to be as good as Alex Singleton, but like he found out after graduating college and going to the NFL briefly that he had some Canadian blood in him, which would make him eligible to be drafted.
yeah, I heard that too. He played at East Carolina. I think he was on a practice roster in 2018 with I think it was the 49ers.
Yes, that's who I thought it was, but I didn't want to say it. And also in the combine, he tore up drills. He placed top three for a lot of the major drills for linebackers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good then. So he's yeah, he's definitely draft worthy. I'm gonna say, oh yeah, the Red Blacks were gonna sign him to their squad last year, and they found out that hey, no, you qualify for being Canadian or whatever, so he had to get his national status, and that's why he's now in this draft. So I think because the Red Blacks discovered him and they're picking right here, and they need some good Canadian depth there. I feel like that they probably take him. Moving on from Jordan Williams, we have Mark Anthony DeQuay, who I've been picked at 7 by the Riders, and James has Nicholas Daly. Now, James, I'll let you talk about those two prospects.
Yeah, I'm gonna start off with Daly. This is kind of a reach, a lot. I was just trying to set myself apart a little bit, but I was going off of the impression of he was going to jump up tremendously due to the combine. This guy's huge. He's 6'5", 255, outside linebacker and defensive end. Played at U of R, won CanWest Rookie of the Year, All Star. I think he had some troubles there. Went to CJFL for the Okanagan Sun, All Canadian, All Star, stud. This year, U of S, All Star, just tears it up. He's gross. When I say gross, he's just a savage. He's huge. You never find a Canadian D end this big, and he's a menace coming off the edge. And I felt like he'd show off really good in the combines and one-on-ones at the national combine, beating some of these American O linemen. But unfortunately, we won't get to see that. So this pick looks a little stupid. but Mark Antony,
DeQuay. Yeah,
Dequay. Okay,
yeah.
okay, yeah,
I say it like a
uh,
French person, so I'm hoping that's right.
yeah. Yeah, you have him at 7 going to Sask. I have him at 8 going to Hamilton. I honestly, this guy was the leader on the top U Sports defense at University of Montreal. Sadly, he lost in the Vanier Cup, but he still had a really, really good performance in the Vanier Cup. Uh, he ran a 4.35 40 at his pro day, which is crazy. That's better than tons of NFL talent. So I honestly think this guy is going to get a shot at the NFL. I'm honestly thinking that he gets signed to a practice squad. I see him in like the same light as Buka, who came out of U of C a few years ago. Not that I think he's a little better, but in the same vein that they're going to get an NFL shot.
Yeah, that's possible. You mentioned his speed, and the fact he plays DB and safety is kind of nice for the CFL. Gives the Riders a potential backup or depth for Buka, and that doesn't work out if that's not the way they want to go. They can always move him over to safety.
Oh yeah, 100%. He's so versatile.
Oh yeah, like I watched the Vanier too, and he stood out for me. Sinegro was pretty good there too. Calgary's running back, who no one's really talking about. He's another guy that I think people need to watch out for.
Oh, Rodriguez,
Yep.
yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah. But the issue is his combine got canceled, which is upsetting. I know for a lot of guys because I play in the OUA. I'm from Calgary, and I know guys who are going to go to the combine, and it's so frustrating because a lot of guys make their name at the combine. This happens every year where guys make a name for themselves at the combine. To be honest, Jordan Williams, other people wouldn't really know who he was unless he had this opportunity at the Ontario Combine.
100%, yeah. And moving on to our eighth pick, as you mentioned, you have Mark Anthony DeQuay. I have John Brissett, who's a wide receiver, and
He's
let's talk
my
about him.
he's my number 9. He was very good at University of Richmond, which is an FCS school. So the subdivision, uh, bowl subdivision. I honestly, he was really good when he played at Richmond, but then he transferred as a grad to Virginia, which is ACC. Uh, and he wasn't very productive. He's more of a just a depth or practice guy rather. And I think scouts are looking at his FCS film and realize, oh, he'll be good in the CFL, but he just wasn't good enough to compete at Virginia where 4-star recruits go, where they play Clemson. They just thought he was really good, but just not good enough to play against NFL caliber type guys. And I see him going in the first round based off of what he previously did. But you never know. He could be a really good Canadian receiver. I think this is a boomer bust pick.
Yeah, I'm going with his pedigree there that scouts are going to be really high on, and Hamilton losing their starter, Mike Jones. He also was a Canadian that played in American school. I feel like maybe they take that route again, and hint, hint, they're gonna pick a fail safe. I think with my next pick for Hamilton. But at my number 9, I had Cameron Lawson, who we already discussed. You feel he's the top defensive tackle in the draft?
In the draft, I'd say, but he's the second best in Canada. I think the best one's still in U Sports, but that's a topic of discussion for another time.
Oh, no, no, no. Who is it? Don't leave us guessing.
I think it's Jamin Pelly from U of C. If anyone saw the Vanier Cup, Dominator guy. I played CJFL with him when I used to play juniors. This guy, instead of playing high school, played in the Canadian Junior Football League and played against guys who are in the CFL now. Was dominating CFL practice squad because they have a Cameron Lawson, I believe, did this when he played in the CJFL, where you can be a part of the practice squad
Oh, yeah.
while you're playing CJFL. And apparently, he was going against guys on the Dinos and holding his own. He's a 6'6", 360-pound D tackle who is lightning fast and is a bully. He was an all Canadian, and I think this guy will get NFL looks once he reaches the combine, I believe, next year. But he is one of these guys who slipped through the cracks for NCAA. But man, he's so good. He could have went to the CFL. Stamps offered him a contract, but he said, "No, I want to get my degree and go to U of C." So Jamin Pelly, look out for that name.
Oh, that's gonna be interesting to see when he comes into the CFL. Is he eligible next year, or when is he ready to go?
I believe he's eligible next year because he played three. He has 2 more years, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he might have 3 more years. So he's draft eligible, not this season, next season.
Oh, okay. So look out for him, you sport and CFL fans, for sure.
Older guy. He's an older guy, but yeah.
So now to the second round. We have the same guy in the first pick of the second round, Ryson John. Now, this guy intrigues me a lot, so I'll let James talk about him here.
Yeah, this guy came out of nowhere. I had no idea who he was. No one did. He kinda came out of nowhere, which I just said. He played for Simon Fraser, the Division Two team in Canada. He had 10 touchdowns and about just under 900 receiving yards on a team that was 1-6. But the intrigue I have with him is he's 6'7", 230 pounds. As a
Yeah,
Canadian receiver, you never see that. He had 10 touchdowns, which is crazy. So you know he's a good red zone target. I think he's so big that he'll just be able to moss DBs. And I think he's a good pick. I don't know about safe pick because we've never seen a receiver this tall, but I think he has tremendous upside just based on his production and his build.
yeah, I hear you there. From what I remember, he had some good speed, and he's got what you can't teach. He's got size, almost a 900-yard receiver. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a decent pick. It is interesting to see if he pans out at the next level.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So now we move on to our second pick of the second round. You have a guy that I really like, but I don't think is going to go this high, Tyler Taranowski. And then I
Oh,
have Brendan O'Leary Orange going to the Argos with this pick.
I'll first talk about Tyler Ternowski, University of Waterloo, electrifying offense. Their best receiver. I think he had 8 touchdowns this year. Man, just when you see him in person, like I'm not a defensive player, but I played against him. I saw him. He took back a 90-yard TD on us, which is unfortunate for us, but good for his draft stock. Uh, really good route runner, and I don't think we've seen a CIS caliber receiver like this in a long time. I think maybe Danny Vanterhoor. Sorry, his name I always
Vandervoort
mispronounce.
or something like that. Yeah,
Vandervoort. Yeah, I think he's on the same level where he's a CIS guy who's so highly regarded, but I think this guy has a better chance in the pros, and I just really want to see him succeed because he's so fun in U Sports.
for sure. When I look at this guy, he's undersized, but very productive. So that tells me he's got a lot of skill. So I think
Yeah,
he will probably pan out, and something screams gem about this guy for me. I don't know what it is, but I feel like he's gonna be a stud.
Oh, 100%. I agree with the gem comment because I think he's the best U Sports receiver on here, and I think people are gonna look past him because he played U Sports, but I think he's better than all the guys I've mentioned previous.
Sure.
My opinion. Then Brendan O'Leary Orange, uh, a Nevada Wolfpack player. Kind of a depth guy, nothing really special, but I think he's on here. He's one of these guys who's going to be in the second round just based on he played in the States and was a depth guy. So they just think, oh, he played Div 1. Let's bring him up to the CFL. And fun fact, he played with Last Chance U quarterback from the third season rather, at Nevada.
Oh, that's
If
cool.
anyone's a Last Chance U fan, yeah.
Now, I have his numbers from 2017 weren't that bad, but yeah, as you mentioned, in later years, his numbers kind of dropped off. He had 39 receptions, 618 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 2017. I mean, those are decent numbers, and
Yeah, starter numbers, but then they kind of drop off tremendously.
yeah, for sure. And that's definitely a red flag. But yeah, he's going to be an interesting pick at the next level. I just feel like the Argos are going to go with an American guy just because they seem to draft that way. So
Yeah, I agree. They go for the NCAA guys.
yeah. And then our number three pick of BC's, we both agree here that I believe this guy's name is Dylan Giffen. Is that correct?
Western offensive lineman.
Yep.
He Western is like offensive line U. That and U of A, I think, thus far in the current state of the CFL, have produced the best linemen at the next level. Shane Bergman on the Stamps is from Western, and tons of guys from there get drafted. Calgary loves Western guys, but I'm just using that as an example. I know he's going to I think he'll get drafted to BC, but he's consistent. He didn't have an all Canadian this year, but he's one of these guys who isn't an up or down guy. He's been tremendously consistent for Western on their championship runs. He's a guard at the next level, I think. I think he's an interior guy, but man, it's just Western. My top three teams for producing pros are Western, U of C, and Laval. So if you're going to one of those schools and you're an offensive lineman, you know they're going to be extremely well coached.
For sure. I'm gonna add another school, Wilfrid Laurier, to that list. For defensive linemen, because they produced some great defensive linemen these last 2 years with Robbie
Oh, I
Smith and
agree.
Kwaku Boateng. So I'll add them to that list as well. BC definitely needs the help on the offensive line, so I think this again makes sense that they draft two Canadian offensive linemen for depth purposes.
That's kind of blanked out. What team does the next? Does Isaac's the guy from the FCS school?
Yeah, Southeastern Louisiana.
That's what I thought. Sorry, man. I just kind of blanked out there for a second
Oh, it's okay.
trying to
James is
remember how
just
to pronounce
jumping
his name.
ahead here. So we'll go to the number four pick now, as we mentioned. Isaac Yemi Berglund is how I'm gonna say his name. Again, this number four pick, the second round is Edmonton's, and you have Jack Kasser going there.
Yeah, so I'll start with Berglund, defensive end, Southeastern Louisiana, I believe, in the FCS conference, so the lower version of Div FBS. I th- I think he'll probably go second or third round. He's one of these guys you got to wait for the combine and see because yeah, he was productive in FCS, but he doesn't have a lot of hype around him, and he's a wait and see kind of guy because he's we always find Canadians late, and then they get added to this list. Then Jack Casser, OUA Defensive Player of the Year, first team All Canadian. Every defensive accolade you could think of in U Sports, he got it. Linebacker, he's 6'4", 230. That's huge for a linebacker, especially in the Canadian game. This is another guy I played against who just lays licks on guys. He's a guy where you're running across the middle as a receiver, you're gonna get smacked by this guy,
Oh,
and he's just a thumper, and I think he'll be really good for Edmonton. Second round's really tough to find instant starters. He's not an instant starter, but I think he'll get playing time in his first year and be a depth guy his first year. And I think he could develop into something really good.
I hear you there. I'll be honest, he's a guy I'm not very familiar with, but you have very high praise for him, so I think that's a good sign for his stock. Then moving on to our fifth pick, which is property of Montreal's. You have them drafting Adam McClare, brother of Anthony, who plays for the Buccaneers, and Sam.
Achimpong.
Yep, you know this guy.
Yeah, I'm friends with his brother in real life.
Oh,
Uh, he's my teammate. His brother's my teammate.
nice.
Defensive lineman as well, starter for us. He's good. But so Adam O'Clair, I think his production did drop off this year, but he's a Laval guy, so you know he is coaching. He can play in the secondary or linebacker. He has that physique and athleticism, which makes him versatile. He had that drop off in production, but I don't think that's anything to be scared of. Laval kind of had a down year, so to speak, for them. When I say down year, they had 2 losses, but still,
Yeah.
uh, I think he's gonna fit in with Montreal, draft the hometown kid, get all the Laval fans to come out, and I think he's a good depth guy right away, good special teamer.
Yeah, I agree with all of those points there for sure.
And the next guy I have in our chat, I have mentioned this guy, and now it's coming out. Oh, this guy's so good because I know these guys before the scouts do. Sam Achimpong, defensive end, defensive tackle, kind of a three tech guy. He's about 6'4", 275. He had not a crazy amount of tackles, but he's an interior. He played a lot of interior at Laurier, but I think he's going to be successful at the next level because Laurier is defensive line U for Canadian football.
Oh
In
yeah.
my opinion, they just keep producing good defensive players at the next level. Laurier, they've a tremendous D line coach, and I think this guy's not going to be a starter right away, but a depth guy. I think he'll sit and then become one of these really good guys. And I think he's a gem because no one had him on the top 15. And at the combine, I expected him to test well because he's a strong guy, strong. Pete, when I say strong, I mean he just has man strength. He's just naturally really, really strong.
All right, I feel you there. Yeah, Laurier is a good place as we mentioned earlier for defensive linemen, defensive ends. So considering that's a spot of need for Montreal, I feel like they probably pick him a little earlier here. And moving on to the sixth pick of the second round, which is property of the Calgary Stampeders. You have them picking Achimpong, and then I have them picking Jack Casser. So just address those guys. So we're going to move on to our seventh pick here, which is property of Montreal. I have them taking Eau Claire here. He made a lot of good points. Local kid, has ability to play linebacker and DB, and I feel like he could probably play safety if they needed him to. So
Yeah, and the other guy I have here is also a local kid. I think he's a gem as well. Andrew Sinnett Spalding, defensive tackle McGill. McGill's been a pretty crappy team, pretty mediocre the past few years, ups and downs. But he's one of these guys out of Cégep, which is their which you play before college rather, in Quebec. It's like junior college almost. He was one of the top recruited defensive tackles, but he chose McGill. Uh, Super productive at his time in McGill, instant starter in McGill, and he tore up guys on Laval where uh, he's he's really dominant in the middle, and he's no matter what team you put him against, he's produced in OUA. He's played the Lavals, the Montreals, the Concordias, Sherbrooks, and every team, no matter what it is, he's playing at such a high level that other guys can't match. I think he is kind of ahead of guys at U Sports, but I think it's different in the pros because he isn't very big. He's 6 foot, 290. Not that he's not light. He's a heavy guy. It's just He's not very tall, he's 6 feet, and I think he'll be, good at the next level and a gem just because of the flashes he's shown in college against these elite teams.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. He's another guy that I had not heard about. So interesting pick on your part. And then we have two guys we talked about earlier with that eighth pick in the second round, which is property of Hamilton. Tyler Taranowski. I hinted it. They're gonna go. Hamilton's gonna go with a guy that it kind of has the pedigree, but they're also gonna draft a guy who's productive, and I feel like that's gonna be Taranowski. And then you have them drafting Brendan O'Leary Orange at this spot.
Yes, sir. Um, I think Tyler Turnowski is a good fit for Hamilton or Toronto. I could see him go in there, but I don't know, I just think Tyler Turnowski's so good, that's why I had him so high, but I think, Orange has a big possibility of going ahead of him just based on that NCAA pedigree.
Yeah, I kind of do too. Turdowski, yeah, they have undersized Canadian receivers. Like they have Brian Unger there already, so I feel like it'd be easier for Taranowski to go there just because they already have a guy like that. So in function is at worst depth for him, but I feel like he's going to be very productive at the next level for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And with our last pick in the second round, we have different picks here. I have Noah Howlett, defensive back, and then you have Samuel. How you say his last name, James?
Uh, left brev. I can't even say it. Left brev. I don't
Okay.
want to butcher it, but he's a center from Laval who also has All Star and All Canadian nods. I think he's a center at the next level, but Laval always produces pretty good offensive linemen. I don't think he's going to be as good as um, what was the gentleman drafted first overall from Laval?
Oh,
His name's slipping me.
it's okay.
Pierre
Cattell Essay.
Lavertu. Pierre
Oh,
Lavertu.
okay. You're
Yeah,
going back a couple years. Yeah.
going back. Yes, I don't think he's as good as him, but he's that's just an example, a comparison that Laval can produce really good centers. Um, I don't think they're in the same vein, but not necessarily the same. And I think he'll be good for Winnipeg because Winnipeg's always looking to get offensive linemen and not necessarily upgrade, but get depth. Let this guy sit a little bit. Then in a few years we'll start. And then Noah Hallett, a guy I've played against, unfortunately, because they beat us.
Yep.
He's a DB from McMaster who had a top five U Sports defense, and they in the OUA, the Ontario Conference, they had the best defense and most turnovers. And Noah Hallett's one of these defensive backs that helped lead that charge. Really good in coverage, solid. Um, he's obviously not a starter, but I think he's a depth guy. But I think he's going to be a great Canadian DB acquisition by the Bombers to help add depth in the meantime while he develops. But just McMaster's also a team that makes pretty good pros, in my opinion, all around, not necessarily one position. But he had a really good year this year, winning the OUA, and uh, I expect some pretty decent things from this guy.
Yeah, same here. I put him there more or less because I read some stuff on him. It says he also, as in addition to being a starter there, he was also a big contributor on special teams. So I feel like a team like Winnipeg would really value that. And I'm sure him being a Canadian DB, they can probably stick him at safety or they'll try to. So
Yeah, try and do something with him.
exactly. So he could maybe be the heir apparent to when Jeff Heck decides to hang it up, I feel like. Yeah, he can
Mhm.
also contribute on teams, so that's always good.
Yeah, that's what guys are always looking for, that your special teams ability. That's a lot of reasons why guys go so high in the second round who people aren't super familiar with due to their special teams abilities. So that's where a lot of Canadian guys make their money.
Yeah, for sure. Like for example, I think it was in the fourth round, Calgary drafted Fraser Sopik, who is I think he was pegged to be like the top linebacker in that draft, but I think he played a little bit on defense, but he made his mark mostly on teams, and that's how a lot
Yeah.
of these guys managed to stick around so long.
Yeah, that's how you get opportunities, stick around, develop on teams, then hopefully get moved to defense.
Exactly. So that concludes our mock draft. Because I didn't say all of the picks initially, who owned them, I'm just going to run through it really quickly. So, in the first round, Calgary owns the first overall pick because of the Nick Arbuckle trade, I believe. So, James and I both have Carter O'Donnell as the first overall pick. Number two belongs to the Toronto Argonauts. I have them drafting Thomas Jack. James has them drafting Katelase. At number three, I have BC drafting Katelase, and James has them drafting Thomas Jack. Uh, Number four, that pick is owned by Edmonton. I have them drafting Mason Bennett. James has them drafting Cameron Lawson. Number five belongs to Hamilton. I have them drafting Michael Hoyt, and James has them drafting Mason Bennett. Number six belongs to the Red Blacks. We both have them drafting Jordan Williams. Uh, Seventh pick in the draft belongs to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I have them drafting Mark Anthony DeQuay, who's a DB slash safety, and James has them drafting Nicholas Daly, who is a defensive end slash outside linebacker. Number eight belongs to Hamilton, who I have drafting Dijon Brissett, and James has drafting DeCoy. Uh, Ninth pick of that round also belongs to Toronto. I have them drafting Cameron Lawson, and James has them drafting Brissett. In round two, that first pick is owned by Ottawa. Second pick, Toronto. Third pick, BC. Fourth, Edmonton. Fifth, Montreal. Sixth, Calgary. And the seventh pick of that round also belongs to Montreal. The eighth pick in the second round belongs to Hamilton, and the ninth belongs to Winnipeg. And that should wrap things up. Are there any guys that maybe you see sneaking into the final April rankings that may not be on here?
That's so tough because of the combines being canceled. But I'd say keep an eye out for Rossini Sanjong. Tested well at the Ontario Combine, did really well in one-on-ones. He's defensive end, possibly an outside linebacker at the next level. Really productive. I believe he's a two-time first-team OUA All-Star, and I think he sneaks in there based off of his combine performance.
Yeah, for sure. You were right about two guys that snuck on to the last one. I believe it was Cameron Lawson and Jack Casser, were two guys you said to look out for. So they were on the list. So those two guys very likely could end up in that final April ranking if they have it. And once again, for those of you who don't know, CFL draft is April 30th. Stay tuned to the True North CFL podcast. We will have all of your drafting info, and we plan to have a couple shows like this for the draft. We'll probably do a final mock draft, uh, maybe the day or two before the CFL draft, and then we'll kind of do a post draft analysis of everything when that's all done. So, yeah, and keep your eyes here. True North CFL podcast. I've been Jimmy Leach.
And I've been James Tees. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Anytime. So again, if you didn't get to see our full mock draft, it's posted on our Instagram and our Twitter. So go check that out for sure. This is the True North CFL podcast signing off.